So today I'm just going to talk about what um, I am as a person, and then what my experience is in this specific field, talking to politicians, and then in a recent like college class that I took, this professor did a case study course where you could kind of like put your input into like cases that could or have happened to people before. So we're going to use that as our interactive session. And then I'm going to move on to the key takeaways that you guys can also use when you are doing politics work or just talking to politicians in general. Yeah, so about me. Hi, everyone, again. I'm Rena Kawasaki. I'm 18. I'm currently studying in the Yale University, and I'm studying cognitive science. I changed my major like 2 days ago, so don't know if I'm going to stick with it, but I'm trying to study cognitive science in the track of political psychology. And I'm the regional director of Earth Guardian Japan. I have been involved in Earth Guardians since 2020 when I was 14, so that's a long time now. And I started the Let's Talk to a Politician project, which I'm going to talk in depth in this class today. And my main area of focus or of action is for youth participation in government and in society in general. Yes. So, what makes me qualified to be teaching this class? Well, I'm going to tell you now. So, this is my experience starting the Let's Talk to a Politician project. So, some history. It started somewhere between 2020 2021, and it started as a online event during COVID. Um, in Japan, we had a big national election around that time, and we had a record low number of or percentage of young adults. So just youth going to that election. So that kind of sparked my call to action to start this project. And it all started when I was riding a bus to go to my school, and I kind of saw this politician. In Japan, it's very common to see politicians do speeches, especially local, regional ones, in nearby stations. However, I just saw a lot of people of the same age as me kind of like passing by and not really like stopping to listen, especially because we have like work, we have jobs, we have to go to school. So I felt that it was a very inefficient way to communicate with especially youth who have a lot going on. And if you don't know the political dynamic of Japan, it's usually the people who have time, so either the most wealthy people or the people who are in the older, like senior generations who have time to actually kind of engage with politics. So that was kind of the like dynamic, or is still today, the dynamic of political engagement of youth in Japan. So we decided to start this online kind of discussion event where we invite we started with regional politics to join the Zoom call where youth could directly talk to these politicians about certain like discussion topics that we've selected for them. So in Japan, it's very taboo to kind of like talk about politics within the workspace or even in classrooms. When we are taught about civic engagement and education, we are more talking about like what the entire governmental system is, not how to form opinions or who to support. So we started this like project as a kind of a new kind of civic education where youth can actually talk to politicians and from different political parties and actually get to know what these political parties are. So this is kind of like how it started. Yes. So today I want to take you guys through each and every step that it takes to run these kinds of events. We've done it usually once a month or once in 2 months. It started off as kind of bringing politicians from a specific region who are kind of in different political parties. I know there's a lot of people from different countries. And I know in the US, there are like usually only like two major parties and then one like independent candidate usually running. However, in Japan, there are multiple, I think over like five or six nationally recognized political parties, and there's even more when it comes to regional. So we are going, so it's kind of like we started with mixing together political parties, but now we are kind of moving towards, because of due to popular demand, spotlighting specific political parties. So the timeline for each of our events is we start with event planning, and then we kind of look at the contact. So what this means is how to actually contact or email or call these politicians to see if they are interested in talking at our event. And then we schedule individual meetings with the politicians who have agreed to participate in
Participate.
these events. And then we
Please,
encourage,
Augustine, can you mute yourself?
okay. No worries. And
Yeah,
then we move
go ahead.
toward advertisement, so how to get the youth actually participating in these events, and then we move on to the day of the event. So I'm going to take you guys through really quickly how we kind of do everything when it comes to this. So as for event planning, our team consists of, so Mujiva mentioned that Earth Guardians Japan is very, very active. Um, when it comes to these kinds of events, but we do have a specific team within our crew. So how Earth Guardians Japan is actually structured is that we have a leaders team that kind of overlooks everything and does once a month like lectures for our members. But then under that, we have the media team, we have the kind of engagement team that does these once a month lectures. However, under that, we also have these projects that our youth can kind of join into, or they can also create their own projects. But currently, one of those projects is Let's Talk to a Politician. So we currently have 4 or 5 youth under the age of 18 that are planning these events with me. So basically, we start with searching for politicians online. We do not have mostly any connections when we're starting these events. So we usually like look for them, like look for politicians within that specific political party that we want to invite to talk. Our criteria is very arbitrary. Usually I just assign a new youth that is starting out in our project team that kind of is interested in kind of contacting these politicians, and I just tell them to like search for politicians that they find interesting or look like they are ready to engage with you. So we pick up like 4 or 5 politicians. Usually we finally invite like 3 people because some obviously don't respond, which is totally understandable. And then we kind of craft these emails to actually contact these politicians later. And then during our event planning, the other youth who are not contacting these politicians are coming up with themes and create resource packets for youth. So this is an example of a resource packet right here. That we actually created. I know it's in Japanese, but usually we come up with 3 or 4 discussion themes that our youth can kind of use to talk to these politicians within. So within this, we kind of kind of explain the topic, usually some case studies. So this is an example. This is for the topic of taxes and how they work. So we kind of create these resource packets because I think after the first or second event that we did, we realized that some politicians had the feedback that some of the youth couldn't really engage in the discussions because they didn't really have basic foundational knowledge of the themes that we were talking about. So we kind of create resource packets within this stage of the event planning. And then next is contacting the politicians. I know it sounds really, really scary if you've never contacted like a politician before, and depending on where you're from in the world, it's very like scary to do so. Just to preface, Earth Guardians Japan have kind of adopted this stance of cooperation with government. You don't have to do it this way. However, we've decided that as an organization, it would be much beneficial to the youth of Japan to make sure that we are cooperating with these governmental figures instead of protesting mainly. So that's not to say that protest culture is negative in any way. It's just that the stance it's just the stance that we as an organization have as a branch of Earth Guardians have adopted. So what we include in these emails, these are basically cold emails. So we email 5 or 6 politicians every event, and we make sure to include our name, our age, what our organization does, and our genuine passion for the event, because a lot of politicians receive a lot of emails that are kind of sometimes a little bit fishy. So we make sure to kind of introduce ourselves, and especially if you're young, they're more likely to respond that way because a lot of adults kind of email them for things that don't really need a response. So we make sure that we include our age and what our organization does and our passion for the event. And this is very, very important, your knowledge about the specific politician and why we decided to invite them to talk. So, for example, in this email, I'm sorry, it's also in Japanese, but there is a this is a college freshman emailing. Her name is Koharu. She's still part of our team, and she's saying, "Hi, I'm from this international NPO Earth Guardians, and I'm from the Japanese branch of that. After reading your profile online, I found these specific things that are really, really interesting about you, and think that a lot of different youth would want to specifically hear you speak. So this is kind of the like outline, and then we make sure to write the date and the time of the event, and then also our event theme and what they specifically want us to do. And then after that, we make sure to afterwards make sure to schedule an individual meeting with these politicians right before, maybe like 4 or 5 days before they're actually planning to speak. So I know that my hair color changes in every photo, but this was, I think, the last event that we did, which was in July. First of all, make sure to thank them for your time. These meetings should not last more than 30 minutes. These people are very busy, and you're also very busy as well. So make sure to thank them for their time, and then show your passion for this event, and then kind of explain the rundown, the schedule of the day of the event, and what time you want them to come in, and how many minutes each section is going to take. And then you're going to present the participant info in a report format. Usually, a lot of organizations don't do this, but we've kind of made it a habit just so that they know what these participants want. So basically, this on the right side is the pre-event report that we usually create 3 or 4 days before the event. Um, we write down how many participants that are currently registered, and then what their age is, where they're coming from, like where they're located, and what kind of questions they have specifically for the politicians participating. Yes. So before we move into how we actually advertise these events, I kind of want to move into a case study format. So this is the interactive part of my presentation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out a case study that actually happened to our team. And then I want you guys to either comment in the chat or raise your hand so that I can on how you would actually like kind of attack this. I would really like to know, because I know that there's not only like one right answer for these things. So I really want to kind of like hear you guys' opinions on how you would tackle this kind of problem. So our first case study is about how to advertise, and I'm just going to read it out. You realize that many passionate participants are not signing up with the current advertisement method and event concept. How would you alter the current event method to get participants with higher knowledge involved? So if you have any like answers that you would like to put in the chat, or if you want to like speak and let me hear your voice, that would be also good. So you can also like raise your hand as well and let us call on you. But for now, you can kind of like type in the chat. I'll give you guys about 2 or 3 minutes to do so. And while I'm doing that, I'm just going to explain the kind of situation that we were in when we faced this. So we started off with our like topic of like civic engagement, and we realized that a lot of people who were signing up were people who are already involved in political activism. And after they came to their first event, they realized that it was very beginner level, and also the way it was advertised was that it was a very kind of beginner level event, which was like how to talk to a politician, let's talk to a politician, that sort of thing. So after the second event, they started not signing up, so we were very confused, and we needed to figure out how to actually get these people who are already involved in political activism actually participate. So if you guys can kind of like put in the chat like what you would do as a event coordinator, how would you get these very involved youth? So people who are under the age of 18 who have already done political activism before in these events so that they can get engaged with these politicians. I'm just going to set aside 3 or 4 minutes here. Mm, Morag, that is a very, very good point. You can get them to help run, organize the event, and pass on their knowledge, facilitate discussions, etc. This is actually a really good point. We found it most helpful. This is also applies to um, kind of the mm, how do I say this in English? The discomfort that people feel when it feels like they're being given a training or being given a kind of or being provided a service almost. So in the first event, they come, they find it very enjoyable. However, they feel like they are kind of being like given an education when they feel like they've already done, I have already done a lot when it comes to this topic. So that is a very great way. This is also being used in more social worker stances. I interned for a city government over this kind of like many social workers within city government struggle to keep kids over the like certain over a certain age, so over middle school involved because they feel like they're being provided a service. So they usually help get them to carry like plates or help cook for these other kids who are younger than them so that they can keep their engagement up. So that is a very good point. Um, Oh, this is very interesting. From Audrey. As a yoga instructor, we have this kind of problem. Many yogis don't keep coming to classes, but we have found out including all levels of education in each class helps tremendously, ensuring each person gets something beneficial for each session. This is a very good point. And I think that there are a lot of answers to this. But some kind of people, when it says all levels, feel like, oh, like, but I have a lot of knowledge about this topic. I don't really want to come. But at the same time, like including all levels makes ensures that we get kind of the lower half of the education level. So that is a very good point. Um, it has says we can invite our friends and colleagues to participate actively. We may also open up with the information about the events to make it more interesting. The use of social media account is indeed helpful through shared engagements and postings. That is a very good point. This is something that actually we have to work on since we are still finding it kind of like scary to post on social media about these open kind of like discussion points because we kind of feel like maybe someone who with someone with maybe like ill intent might join these calls, especially if we are inviting more high profile politicians like we did in our last round. We had a National Assembly politician come in as well. So if anyone has any advice on kind of like maintaining a safe environment for these students and also for the politicians involved while still facilitating open discussion, that would be also great. Samantha also says social media is key as we can raise awareness about events. This is very, very nice. So what we kind of came up with as a organization, this is not at all the only answer to it, but something that we found helpful is that we kind of changed the event name to not Let's Talk to a Politician, but we basically advertised also on our official social media account, but our individual social media accounts by saying, oh, there is an opportunity to kind of exchange opinions or perspectives with a politicians for this specific political party. Is anyone interested? And we use the stamp mark for if you know, like on Instagram on the stories, there is like a stamp thing where you can like press and you can see who pressed your story. We kind of use that and said if anyone is interested, we'll go to your DMs directly. We found that sending mass emails to specific organizations or communities usually doesn't help. Sometimes it does, obviously, but we've decided that to make it look like a closed event, even though it's an open invite to join, made it seem more exclusive and it made it seem like a more safe space for people with higher knowledge or more engagement to kind of talk. So that was kind of our brush to it. So moving on to the second case study, this is kind of the opposite problem. So we now have the opposite problem. Some participants who have lower knowledge of politics now feel too intimidated to join our event. How can you change your event concept to accommodate them? So you can again put in the chat what you guys feel. We kind of had like an answer to that with the who was it? Yeah, Audrey also said this, like including all levels makes it feel more inclusive. But how would you kind of like now that you've got your higher engagement audience, like we also had this problem when we were first starting off as well, where now we have a lot of high engagement participants, but now what like when a beginner level participant comes in and finally gets the courage to join, they feel like they don't have enough knowledge to speak up and therefore like are muted throughout the.
Hello.
Oh, hi. Do you have an opinion on this?
Yes, I'm Saur from India.
Hi, Sarv. Do you have an answer to the current case study you're seeing on the screen right now?
Yeah. I just started my organization and need help by you, the team of Earth Guardians. So I found the name like Avnesa Misra is leading India crew. So I want to get the contact details of Avnesa Misra. Can
Okay,
it possible?
I think Mujiba
Hello,
is
Surab.
contact.
Yeah. Hello, Surab. The regional crew council leader in your region in India will reach out to you. So today we are on a global masterclass. We are sharing some tips, some knowledge about how to talk to a politician. So
Yeah,
welcome to
yeah.
this masterclass, and you can have time out after to discuss larger and further about how to start your crew in India. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead, Rena.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh wait, someone has screen. Oh yeah, Audrey said maybe we can have sort of a panel or partner up in a one-on-one discussion so they can have more personal dialogue. That is also a very good point. We found that this also works for more higher engagement participants as well, making sure that they have more personal engagement with the people in the kind of panel. We've made sure that our kind of events are smaller, so we usually have a max capacity of 20 people, and then we break them up into breakout rooms. So it's a more personal dialogue. Oh, okay, Jahez. As a humanities major, we study politics, and it's part of our program as a student to engage in pursuit a little sooner. Politics is someone makes people uninterested, but everything's political. Let's not stop engaging the public in the most positive way without degrading their beliefs. It is to battle the misinformation. Yes. That's also a very good point. We find that in Japan it's very taboo to even discuss our own opinions about things. So we've kind of tried to like open up about um our like own opinions, especially when we're facilitating. I make sure to kind of say my opinion first so that the floor is opened up for other participants who have different opinions. And we're trying to make it a safer space as possible. So I completely agree with that. Thank you everyone for sharing. So what we kind of did to include engage these like lower knowledge or lower engagement participants is that this is kind of a cheat code, but we kind of changed our target audience to accommodate more higher level engagement people and make sure their engagement is high. So we've made sure that it's like a more exclusive event so that they're more engaged to actually invite their friends who might not be as engaged to join our event. It kind of sounds counterintuitive, but at the same time, if you have a kind of participant base that is high engagement, they're more likely to recommend the event to other people. So it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but that's kind of how we made sure to get our like lower engagement or lower knowledge level participants when it comes to politics. Yes. So this is my final slide. So some takeaways from running these events and something that might be helpful to everyone in this call. So for politicians, when we kind of started out, we were kind of looking for, oh no, no reserves. It's completely fine. But as for politicians, um, we made sure, or we were kind of starting off our event as a service to younger people. We didn't know that it was also a really beneficial opportunity for politicians as well. So these politicians, especially in Japan, are in need of a place to gain youth voice. but they don't want to be creepy, quote unquote, and like show up to schools and things like that. So this is our events were actually a really beneficial opportunity for them to kind of gain this sort of like knowledge when it comes to like politics and youth and how youth are engaged in these kinds of political situations. But also they were I didn't know this at the time, but one politician who came to our latest panel was saying that they didn't have the opportunity to speak to politicians in other regions usually, unless they're in a sort of committee that spans like nationwide, especially for regional politicians. They don't really have the opportunity to talk to politicians in the National Assembly, which is the situation that we had in our last panel, where one of them was from the Senate and one of them was from a local city council. So they really wanted to talk to each other, although in the event we didn't think that was a necessity. So we're kind of altering our event from the next event so that the politicians can have a crosstalk with each other. So when we started the event, we didn't know that it was really beneficial for politicians. But after the event, we've decided that, okay, so this is very beneficial for politicians. We should probably have more confidence when we are cold emailing these politicians and giving them the opportunity to speak to the youth. And for students, this is what we learned in the case study. You like understand your audience and change your methods of advertisement based on what kind of youth or what kind of like target audience you kind of want the to come to your events. So as all of you know, all of you probably are already engaged in this sort of like youth engagement or youth activism. So you know that when you put the target audience as youth, that's already a very large range of audiences that you can capture. And not all youth are the same, not all youth have the same type of engagement. So you kind of have to, when you start this kind of event, you have to go more specific in the way you kind of capture your audience. So as we discussed in the case study, the people who have higher engagement, we can kind of make it look like a more exclusive event where they can talk and kind of share their knowledge with politicians more, like instead of it being a service, and kind of like making it look like a course. And for organizations, I didn't really speak on this in the methods part, but this is very, very important. Give your new members tasks and let them send emails and handle interview tasks, because you especially as youth who are running this sort of event, we have a very big advantage because they already know that we're under experienced. So they're like, okay, we're not expecting the most professional level of kind of I don't know, handling of tasks or like emails. So what we usually do is that whenever a new member joins our project, we're like, okay, we're just gonna throw you in there. You're gonna learn through experience. So we let them be in charge of one or two politicians that come, or we let them be in charge of members or participants that are joining our events, and we let them kind of communicate with them one-on-one, and we let them run their individual meetings and interview tasks before the event so that they can also like get over their fear of talking to adults and talking to more like high profile, as we call it, like politicians and things like that. And they can be more engaged in politics as well. This is also a learning opportunity for our members as well. So this is kind of like, this is very important when it comes to making sure that your event runs for a very, very long time and it's more of a series rather than a string of like individual events. So I found it easy. Like at the start, I did all of the tasks alone because it was so easy to just like run it myself. But over time, I realized that this is not very sustainable in the way I run this event, and it was getting really hard to like make sure that like all of the emails were sent on time and things like that. So I just like learned to kind of like let go and give my new members tasks, and they become more engaged that way because they're now given this like big sense of responsibility that they have to complete in a certain level certain like period of time. So this is kind of how we've maintained engagement from the people who are actually running our event as well. So yeah, so thank you so much for listening, you guys. That was a pretty long presentation on my end, but I'm just going to hand it over to Mujiba, so we can kind of run our like Q&A session after this. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me on my personal email, or you can also email me via the Earth Guardians Japan email. And feel free to DM us on Instagram and follow along to our events as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to join. And we're gonna move it on to our Q&A section.